I want to welcome everybody to the continued Bible study. I am off break now, so it'll be nice to be able to continue this. And this is our informal look at the Bible where we look a lot deeper. It's not a Bible study that you would compare to a normal Sunday school, more of a much deeper where we look at each individual word instead of just glossing over a sentence or maybe even a paragraph or verse or two. So we're looking at the deeper implications of the Bible at large. It's great that a lot of Christians really believe in Jesus and they love Jesus, and I believe that they do, but many of them are very weak spiritually, and they have no idea what the Bible actually says. They don't understand the Bible inconsistencies, and so somebody raises the point that this is very strange that this actually happens, and they say, oh, no, it didn't, but they see it's right there in the Bible, then, it raises a few flags and it causes problems within the religion itself. So we love Christianity. Many religions have stemmed from Christianity, and it's important for us to look at the biblical basis and the source where all of this stuff comes from. So we're going to delve into Genesis chapter 5 again. We're only going to skim over this, unfortunately, just due to the simple fact that it's just about lineage. There's a few things that we can talk about, but most of this is going to be about lineage. It's going to be, hey, this person had this kid at this point in time and then lived this amount of time and then had these children. And then this guy had this kid at this point in time and had these children for several verses. But it's very important to understand that. It's very important to know the lineage, because it all connects to Christ in some way, shape, or form. So it's really, really important to understand that. So let's jump right into this. This is chapter 5, verse 1. This is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. Verse 2. He created them male and female and blessed them and named them mankind when they were created. So, once again, I want to point out here that it's not explicitly stated that it was Adam and Eve who were the only ones who were created by God. So we talked about that before. We talked about how Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden and were just living, and how Cain killed Abel and was cast out, and suddenly he had a wife, and he was building the city and all of that stuff, right? So there's a debate on whether or not Adam and Eve were the only ones created, or if this was just an account of the chosen Adam and Eve. And so, yeah, there's a lot to it. But just circling back to that point, if you don't know about that stuff, just hit up the previous Bible studies I've compiled here. God created mankind. Mankind is terminology that's very, very broad, so it doesn't necessarily just apply to Adam and Eve. I find it very strange that it says this is a written account of Adam's family line, and it says when God created mankind, and so either it's making reference and reinforcing the notion that Adam and Eve were mankind and only mankind at the time, or it's strange that it wouldn't say when God created Adam, he made him in the likeness of God, or Adam and Eve, he made them in the likeness of God. So it continues on and says, he created them male and female and blessed them, and he named them mankind. It doesn't say he named Adam the male. He doesn't say that they named the female Eve or Eve the female. The wording is important here. So it reinforces the idea that there may have been other humans at the time. It's just pushing the idea, the notion that God created mankind. And he named them mankind and he blessed them. So we're moving on. Verse 3. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. Now we need to look at that again. Check this out. Listen to this. The first verse here, when God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. So when Adam, he had his son, in his own likeness. Do you see the parables here? Do you see the parallels? Because God created us in the likeness of God, we are very similar to God, and we may have the same abilities as God, dwarfed, albeit very dwarfed, but we are in his likeness, and therefore Adam here had a son in his own likeness, in his own image. Named him Seth. A lot of people put a lot of stock in Seth. They say, oh, Seth, that's important. But I want to point out that they don't talk about Cain and Abel here. I don't know if you guys noticed this. Seth wasn't the first, right? Seth was not the first, because after Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. So that's verse 4. So Seth wasn't the first, but it omits Cain and Abel. Now, is it not important to know of Cain and Abel? Is this not an account of Adam's family line? It says that right in the first verse. This is the written account of Adam's family line. So where is Adam and Eve? Where is Cain and Abel? Where are these statements? We see Adam. We don't see that Adam joined together with Eve. We only see that it says Adam had children, which is fine. I'm not saying or implying that somebody came from the outside and had sex with Adam and started producing children outside of his union with Eve, right? I'm not saying that. I'm only suggesting that things have been omitted here for reasons. Is it important that we know about Cain and Abel here? No. It is not important because they have their own chapter dedicated to them, right? But these are things that you have to take note of, that you have to notice. So we're going to move on. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam had lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. So that's a very, very long time. Later on, we will be commenting and talking about why people can only live to be around 120 years old at best case scenario. There's a reason for that. My speculation, if you were to ask me, I would say that after living, so long, you would just become corrupt and you couldn't be redeemed. You would be so sin-filled for so many years. We talk about 100 years is a long time. Try 1,000, close to 1,000 years. That's insane, is it not? So you can only imagine how much corruption you could do in 1,000 years. And we'll get to that later, but that is my point with that. We'll talk about that. But it is important to know that people used to live almost 8,000 years. Way, way, way back in origins. So we're going to move on to verse 6. And the rest of the verses are literally going to be the same as I said earlier, where it's just going to say that this person lived this amount of time and that he has so many children, etc., etc. There's only a very few places that it deviates, okay? So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. Try not to tune out because there's going to be places I'm going to stop at. But I'm saying that it's going to be a lot of the same, and I apologize. It just is what it is. Verse 6, when Seth lived 105 years old, he became a father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. Verse 9, when Enosh had lived 90 years, he became a father to Canaan. After he became the father to Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. Verse 12, when Canaan had lived 70 years, he became the father to Methuselah. After he became the father to Methuselah, Canaan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Canaan lived 910 years, and then he died. When Methuselah had lived 65 years, he became the father to Jared. After he became the father to Jared, Methuselah had lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah had lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father to Enoch. After becoming the father to Enoch, Jared had lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. Now, we're on verse 21, and this is where things are going to start to change a little bit. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father to Methuselah. After he became the father to Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had many sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch had lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, and then he was no more because God took him away. This is strange. This is very strange. This is strange. I don't know if you guys notice, but all of the previous verses have the same format. It's the same writing style. And even the two following are almost the same writing style. But this one, God took him away after 365 years. Why? And it does note that Enoch, however you want to say his name, walked faithfully with God, right? So he was a faithful person. It's not like he was sinning. It's not like he joined Satan. It's not like he became heathenistic. It's not like he just threw away everything. He walked faithfully with God. But then he was no more because God took him away, right? So if you were an atheist and you were looking at this, you could say, well, maybe they just didn't know where he went. Maybe he disappeared into a place that many people didn't know about. Maybe he was going crazy and he wanted to walk from Africa or from the Middle East, wherever this location was that they were at. And he was going to Europe, he's going to Russia, he's going to China. Maybe he went to an island or something. He just died, and they never found him. And that's a good point to raise. But I still want to note that he was faithful to God at the time, and I don't think God would allow that to occur. Nevertheless, if you're atheist, if you're agnostic, if you're very critical of the Bible, this is a point that would be raised, and it would be very, very confusing. Why would God take him away? And there is no explanation as to why either. Okay, he just took him away. See you later. So anyways, we're going to continue on. Verse 25. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. And after he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years, had no sons, had other sons and daughters, and altogether Methuselah lived 969 years, and then he died. Now see, you note the formatting there, it's the same as the ones before. The same lineage, the same line, it says the same exact thing over and over again. So I don't understand why would God take Enoch away. There's no explanation to it. So we might get an answer later, but not right there. Verse 28, when Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. Verse 29, he named him Noah, and he said, he will comfort us in the labor and the painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. Verse 30, after Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Verse 31, altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. And I want to focus on two things right here. Again, the formatting, outside of that one strange episode there in verse 21 to 24, all of them are the same, except for this one, again, where it notes that Noah will help with the toiling of the soil. Obviously, it's like, this is hard work. Imagine if you're a farmer and you had a kid, and it's like, man, this is tough work. Really could use some help. Wow, I have this kid. Fantastic. He's going to help me with the soil, man. He's going to help us grow plants. He's going to help us tend the animals. This is great, right? So that's basically what it's saying, but it reinforces the notion that God's the one who cursed the ground. So that's something to take into account. And also the length of time Lamech lived was 777, which 7 is the perfect number in the Bible. 7 repeated 3 times means perfection. And that is interesting that Lamech died they're implying that he was perfect and he gave birth to the perfect son. So that's all there is with that. Now we're going to finish out this chapter with verse 32. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father to Shem, Ham, and Japeth. So again, taking away from what we saw before with this format, it notes the sons that Noah actually did have, and there's a reason for that. And we will likely be getting into the book of Noah next. So, ladies and gentlemen, a few things to focus on. This is the lineage of Adam's family line, omitting Cain and Abel. This is why there's a lineage, because it links all the way to Noah. And if you do the math, it's been thousands of years. You know, we're talking about 912, 905, 910, 895, 962. You know, we're almost approaching about 6,000 to 7,000 plus years, maybe close to 8,000. But it doesn't necessarily note when the earth was created, when Adam and Eve were created. It only notes how long Adam lived. So we still don't know how long, in terms of periods of time, the earth existed. You know, we say, oh, it was a day, it was 7 days. And you know what? I completely agree. It sounds good. What's a day to God? What is a day to those who were logging this back then? What is a year to them logging this back then? We could be completely wrong. Their calendar and their ideas of time can be radically different. So just try to note those things as we move towards the book of Noah in the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end with an invitation to accept Christ. Christ will forgive you of your sins. When you go to God and you are judged, you will say, this isn't fair. You shouldn't be judging me for the things that I've done here. You put me into this world. But God is God, and God will do what he does, and you have a choice to have somebody represent you on Judgment Day. That could be Jesus, or you could represent yourself. Now, good luck representing yourself. It's like going to court. Unless you're a fantastic lawyer and you know the law, you're probably going to lose that case. But if you had Jesus Christ, he would be your representative, and he likely would get you off. The point is, if you have Jesus Christ, you will be redeemed, you will be saved. And that's your choice, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyways, I wanted to end this on that note. I really appreciate you guys tuning into this, and hopefully you will continue listening to the series and giving me more questions to ponder.